What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Onyx Report. Black Masculinist news for the day. I'm going to be honest with y'all. It's finals week. I got a grip of grading to do. I was not going to do a show tonight until I thought about some of the stuff happening. I was like, you know what? We need to have some dialogue on this. So I will be inviting people up to talk about what we're covering tonight. I can't say how long we'll be on, but I do want y'all to weigh in on some of this. So let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will. You can see the various ways to do so on the screen, so please make sure that you do. Brandon, appreciate that support right out the gate. And shout out to the brothers that are already in here. We 70 strong, and we're just getting into it, so appreciate that. What's up? I'm listening. Aaron, what's going on? Saint African, no one. What's good? Julian, right? Jay Cleveland, Child of Light. Victor Creed, what's up? Hey Rue, D, what's going on? Mr. Albert, of course, Brandon, Raheem, appreciate that, man. That word of encouragement. Roaring Sun, what's good? Yeah, man, we got to talk. And I say that because it's not only a constant that we're dealing with this, it's also the season. We all know this is the season where these things go up. This is the season where, families are supposed to get together, celebrate life and how things are going. And that can be particularly challenging, especially if you don't feel like you have anyone there, right? This is the season where isolation can weigh on you more than otherwise. You can spend the majority of your time alone, but you come around and mess with the holiday season, the Christmas season, from Thanksgiving really through New Year's, you can find yourself incredibly isolated. And all of that at that period, all the way up through New Year's, can trick you into believing that this is all life will and can ever be. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about that, because I want to encourage you. I'm going to be unapologetic about that right out the gate. I want to encourage you to look at that shit as a lie. There's nothing going on right now that should convince you that this is all life is and that it'll stay this way. The one constant in life is change, and it will. No matter how hard this shit gets, do not ever forget that, please. We got to talk about this though, from a couple of angles, because there's a couple of things I want to deal with, and it deals ultimately with black males and death. But we're coming at it from two different angles. Shout out to AKs and Curtains. Appreciate that support. Black Man Swimming. Appreciate that. Hey, Ruin the Apocalypse. He says, you know what it is, Doc. Indeed. Appreciate that support, man. We're going to deal with it from a couple of angles. I'm going to, hopefully, my system will be kind to me today. We won't have any problems. We're going to see how this goes. But I want to start this with an observation on Black Fatherhood. Now, some of you guys, if you've been to my comment section, you saw I posted a couple things within the last few days, and this got a lot of conversation. I hope we can generate some of that tonight. But before I delve into it, let me just at least make sure you guys can hear it. So if you will, I'm going to play just a second or two, and I just want to make sure you guys can hear the video clip. So let me see. Give me a 1 if you can hear it. That would be, oh, well, that time I had the mute on, so that's my fault. All right, let's try it again. Here we go.
That I would.
Okay, so hopefully you heard that little bleep. Did you guys hear DL for a quick second? Give me a 1 if you did. All right, so we're there. All right. Normally I don't play video clips for copyright reasons, but on this one, we're going to go there. So let's check out what DL Hughley is talking about in relation to raising his son.
And I was scared to death that if you fail your son, he dies. He could die. When they used to tell me Kyle was defiant, what I recognized a long time ago is that defiance is what gives young black men killed. Because the most young black men who are in prison have learning disabilities. They are dyslexic in some way, audio or idio. They can't hear or they can't understand the process. 85% of men in prison. So to somebody of a different culture, somebody culturally different, that may seem mischievous, or he dances.
Indeed, fair use. Appreciate that, roaring son.
To his own beat. Right. When it's our culture, somebody gets killed. Mm-hmm. And I knew it right away that I would have to prepare him for a world that wasn't like the world she wanted for him. Like I was a coddler. And I was like, I can't let him do this, because it will cripple him. It'll be, you could literally get your son killed by not getting him ready for a world that won't see him that way. So I think for a lot of his existence, a lot of his growing up.
Okay. For a lot of his growing up.
I failed him. I'm not getting him ready. And I was scared to death that if you fail your son, he dies. He could die. Not my daughters, I knew they'd be all right. But I didn't know how to make him ready for this world and see it clear so he could see what's coming. Like everybody tells you, put your hands on the wheel or stay away from this or don't do this. Black boys don't get that kind of break, and you know it.
All right. Yeah. So, in case you don't know or you missed it, he was talking about his son and raising his son. And his son had a learning disorder. And he was, dealing with what it means to be a father, and constantly being worried about the prospects for his son, about his son dying at his failure as a black father and preparing him. Now, I wrote a few comments, and I'll share that now, and then we can kind of open it up a little bit. But what I said was, when I posted this on my community tab, I said he doesn't have to have a learning disability for a black father to have this fear for his son. It's a shared fear many of us have regardless. In fact, one can have the same fear for a son who tests above average. Right? It also manifests as an internal debate for black fathers as to how much of a childhood we should afford them, as opposed to a sort of boot camp approach to prepare them for the contempt much of the world will extend to them. Our feeling of failure around preparing them is usually in direct contrast to how much levity and happiness we try to give them while raising them. Was it too much? Have I not prepared him enough for this war that many have waged against him while he was in the womb? Then too, if I prioritize preparing him for the difficulties of black male life, something even the women in our community don't often understand, have I denied him the experiences that center his humanity? Right? Does he know love? Does he know joy? A reason to live beyond just constantly fighting this racist, anti-black, misandric, social, cultural, and political warfare? In other words, the question I raised was, how do we find that balance? Right? There were times where I imagined being a black father to a son as damn near purely military in terms of preparation. And in some respects, if I had raised him that way, I wouldn't regret it, because I know what's coming. On the other end, my drive as a father, I wanted him to have a childhood, in some instances that I didn't have. I wanted him to have access to experiences and memories and things of that nature that were supportive and uplifting, stable environment. I wanted to see a smile on his face on a regular basis. And I argued with myself for years, and I continue to, about whether or not I've done enough of one or the other, or too much. I go back and forth on that. And I think in many ways that is the balance of the black father, most particularly to a son, because you saw DL say, not so much his daughters. And I've had women who are mothers of daughters and sons talk about the differences they've seen in raising both. But it really comes down to what boys are more likely to experience, black boys, and how to prepare them. And what angle do you take to do so? You know, it's easy to decide that you're going to have a very hard approach to this until you see that boy's face. I remember holding him not seconds after he came out of his mother. And I looked him in his face. And I saw my grandfather, my grandmother. I saw my father and mother. I saw my sister. I saw generations of family in his face. But you know the other thing I saw? I saw pure innocence. Something that I didn't really know if it still existed or if it ever did. I was questioning that. You know, I think I gotten to a point where I was pretty much, you know, I didn't even acknowledge innocence as something that life had until I saw him. And I could hold him in one hand. Well, he was born at 6.5 months, which ironically was same time period his sister had passed away in the womb. So a couple years after she passed, we tried again. He was born at 6.5 because he was growing so fast. The doctor said my wife's body couldn't handle it. So they delivered him early. And that was fine. There were no problems really. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at this boy and I'm seeing all the possibilities in the world. And yet at the same time, I'm seeing how many would have no problem with him not being here for any odd reason. And my sole focus was about what I could do to prepare him on multiple levels and how to get the balance just right. Knowing full well that I'm human and I'm going to make my own mistakes, right? So when his mother passed, it really fell on me. I went so far as to try and find other mothers, and that shit was a shit show all in and of itself. I learned the hard way that this whole Disney idea that women are naturally better parents and that if they get with you just because they dig you, that they'll mother your child is bullshit. It really comes down to the person you're dealing with. And even then, it may take you years to find out. She don't give a damn about your child. She cares about her own nest and you doing for her. So I have brought women and their kids into a space where my son had to wonder where he fit. And those women didn't give a damn. All in all, there's probably only one that even remotely gave a damn about him. But even still, you wonder what you're doing. You know, is it going to work? Is it going to help? And these are the things that I get very concerned about, because at the end of the day, who the fuck else is going to look after him? Who's going to care enough to want to give their lives to help him? And much of the time, fathers know it's going to fall to us, whether we get publicly acknowledged for that or not. It's going to fall to us because there ain't nobody else going to understand him or what he's going to go through, especially better than him. I remember him looking at the world with open eyes and hope and with a smile on his face. And there was part of me that wanted to stamp that out so that he'd be prepared. There was another part of me that wanted to protect it so he could actually live with a heartbeat. Something that I think many a Black father has had to stamp out in himself just to deal with the realities of the world. And again, I still walk that line of hardness and softness, humaneness and warrior mentality. You know, it's a split between the two. And I still grapple with it every damn day. Every damn day. There's a point very soon where he'll be leaving to go out into the world on his own. And I hear other parents talking about how relieved they are and how they can't wait and all of this. Yeah, there's part of me that kind of wants to feel that way, but real talk, no. Anytime he's ever left my house, I've been concerned. And it's taken at some periods, it took everything I had not to follow him, you know, just to make sure nobody did anything, nothing happened. But I realized there were things he was going to have to learn on his own. Didn't make it any easier though. So I could identify very much with DL and his concerns about failure. And that's why I played that video clip, because even his emotions were honest. And I hear a lot of guys denying the emotion in themselves, and I get why, because too much over emotionalism for us is dangerous, but we got to be careful not to stamp out our own humanity. I don't think that was planned or coordinated, but when you start talking about your son, that can go there real quick. Shout out to Metaphorical Tactics. Appreciate that support. All right. Cameron, appreciate that. These are the questions we have to answer and figure out for ourselves. Now, I don't know much about DJ Twitch. We're going to get to him in a second. I can honestly tell you I don't know much about him. I had never really heard of him that I knew of until, unfortunately, today probably. But I know there's too many like him in terms of what's going on. And even as a father, you worry about whether or not you've given your son enough of your soul, enough of your spirit, to where when they're in times of difficulty, they don't turn to self-deletion. You know what I mean? You wonder if you've given them enough wisdom to know that these things may seem slow when it comes to changing, but you got to sit in it until it does. And you got to find something to hold on to. For some people, it's the church. For other people, it's relationships. But whatever it is, and I don't give a damn what it is, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, find it. Some of us use meditation, some use music, but at the end of the day, we have to find it. So let's actually deal with Twitch. Pay him the due respect of at least finding out who he was and what happened. So this is a piece that comes out of Variety. I guess I keep wanting to call it magazine, but all right, there we go. Stephen Twitch Boss, dancer and Ellen DJ, dies at 40. All right, there he is. Yeah, smile too. Just that alone gives you the impression that there's nothing wrong, right? Which is a form of code switching, especially for black men. But anyway, it says Stephen Twitch Boss, DJ and executive producer of the Ellen DeGeneres Show, has died by suicide. He's 40 years old. Boss's wife, Allison Holker, confirmed the news in a statement to People, writing, "It is with the heaviest of hearts that I have to share. My husband, Stephen, has left us. Stephen lit up every room he stepped into. He valued family, friends, and community above all else, and leading with love and light was everything to him. He was the backbone of our family, the best husband and father, and an inspiration to his fans." Holker continued to say he left a legacy would be an understatement, and his positive impact will continue to be felt. I'm certain there won't be a day that goes by that we won't honor his memory. We ask for privacy during this difficult time for myself, especially for our 3 children. Stephen, we love you, we miss you, and I will always save the last dance for you. I guess we'll go through that in a second. So, Boss began DJing on Ellen in 2014, remained on the daytime talk series until it ended this year. 2020, DeGeneres named him an executive producer. He broke into Hollywood after finishing in second place on season 4 of So You Think You Can Dance. After dancing as an extra in films like Blades of Glory and Hairspray, he began landing bigger roles in Step Up 3D, Magic Mike XXL. Boss's credits also include Step Up All In, Modern Family, Ghostbusters, Love, East Los High, Bones, Touch, and Famous in Love. Early in his career, he choreographed for K-pop artists Seven and Big Bang. Later on, Boss went to co-found CLI Studios, which offers online dance classes with top choreographers. Grew up in Alabama, went on to study dance performance at Southern Union State Community College before transferring to Chapman University. He married Holker in 2013. They had 3 kids. Together, the couple hosted Disney Plus docuseries Disney's Fairy Tale Weddings. I don't know if there are other articles that go into more depth. Usually on these kind of things, y'all tend to know more than I do about people I've never, heard of before. It's no disrespect to the brother, but I was sad to hear it nonetheless. 40 is incredibly young, which is something I didn't know until I was 40. I am sad to hear this. I don't know what may have led up to this. I've seen a couple videos intimating that others knew, right? But I don't. I just know it's happening. I had a brother recently on Facebook point out that 2 of his friends had passed away right around the age of 40. And the interesting thing he shared was that both of them ate well, exercised regularly, were in fairly good shape, stayed consistent in doing so, and for all intents and purposes, were healthy. One thing they shared in common is they were Black men. But we know how this stress tends to work. We do know that these are the things that tend to impact us. I'm going to look at a little bit of information on a couple of reasons why, but then I'm going to open it up and we can talk more about these different dimensions of, protection, raising Black boys, self-deletion, and Black maleness. We're going to have some dialogue about all of this. So hopefully you guys will come on up and share what you know, what you've experienced, what you think others should know in this. But let's get to some of the information here. Now, this is something I covered in another video dealing with Black male. I guess deletion is the word of choice these days. This is from The Observer, entitled No Way Out, Black male suicides rising faster than any other racial group. This is dated February of this year. The reason I chose this article is because you can find a couple of others, but you'll notice that they tend to flatten Blackness. And you'll see them using terms like Black people. And again, whenever I start to see that, I get suspect, because there's a lot about Black males that people don't want to disaggregate and break down directly. So I tend to look for the data as separate as possible, right? Let me see. I can never pronounce that. Man, I don't know how to. But he said, this hit me by surprise, Doc. I met Twitch a few years ago, did work on home. Okay. Just moved there with his family. Cool dude. Love music, upbeat. He was a year older than me. Don't know if it was depression. Yeah. I don't know anything about it either. But we're going to talk about some of the things that impact others in his group. I'm not going to read the whole article, just some choice segments. Starts out with an acknowledgement of actress Regina King's 26-year-old son, right, who deleted himself not long ago. Right. Unfortunately, Black men often suffer in silence. This comes from therapist Nettie Jones. They don't seek help that sometimes women will reach out to get. We'll call our girlfriends, let them know that things are not okay. But unfortunately, Black men tend not to do that. They hold things in. They self-medicate. They are workaholics. The kind of do stuff that's not very healthy. They kind of do stuff. I think it's just okay. Supposed to say that. See, this kind of shit right here just looks suspect. That didn't even look like this was written in support of Black men. It really looked like blaming in many respects. And I don't take to it well, but I read it on purpose because I wanted you to see how people talk about Black male death, Black male suicide, right? Oh, they suck it up. There's a lot of dimensions to this because there's also a social punishment for being too emotive, not only as a man, but especially as a Black male. A Black man at that. It's one thing to be an emotional kid. It's a whole nother thing to be emotionally expressive as a man. It's not always read as a positive. If anything, you'll often be punished for it. Shout out to Wrench Turner. Appreciate that support. How you doing, bro? You'll be punished for it, right? Often from the people closest to you, right? From best friends to wives, you'll find that there are punishments for being emotive that men are very careful of, because there's a certain type of respect that once you lose, you don't get back. So we're not going to sit here and act like there's not a reason that some men are very tight-lipped about what they're going through. Especially if you've ever had partners that take the most sensitive and vulnerable experiences you've had and use it against you in an argument. Use it against you to hurt you because they're mad at you or because you didn't do something they wanted you to do. Let that happen to you one good time and watch how tight-lipped a brother will become. At least around you. One thing I will say, in the midst of this moment, this time period that we're going through, this holiday season, I don't want you guys to forget this will not last. And I'm going to keep reiterating that because I know it doesn't feel like that when you're going through it. The hard times seem like they take longer, but I think that's really because when we're having good times, it's easier to take that. Feels good. When's the last time you did something that felt good and it felt like it took too long? That's not how we process things. We process the things that we don't like, and we check the time. We're watching the seconds, waiting for it to go by. But when we're enjoying something, that's not how we process. So it's not that the hard times actually take longer. It's just that we don't stop to monitor the time when things are going well. So I encourage you to push through this. And I do want you to reach out for support. I don't disagree with the therapist's notion about that. I just think it's a very superficial approach to studying Black men, as opposed to actually looking at why Black men are silent. She just dismissively says that's just what we do. I don't think that's enough. But let's continue. Another section I want to look at under hitting home. It says, while rates of suicide and anxiety have risen sharply during the pandemic, a recent study from the Journal of JAMA finds that suicide attempts were rising at an alarming rate long before COVID. The study found that Black males had the highest increase in suicide attempts compared to any other race in the group. For example, increasing nearly 80%. Highlight just that. I want you guys to be aware of that. You'll find the link in the description box for this article. The study found that Black males had the highest increase in suicide attempts compared to any other race in the group. For example, increasing nearly 80%. This study is dated this year. It's taken into account the pandemic, environment, and beyond. Especially at a time period where hospitals are filling back up again, which was anticipated during this season. You already got a lot of isolation. Now you're dealing with a whole nother level that in the last couple of years, many of us have had to grapple with. A whole nother type of isolation on top of that. And for Black men, the vulnerability can be daunting, especially if it's more reality for you on a regular basis. But suffering in silence, the name of another header. Let's look at this. The study authors said young Black men face financial hardship, among other stressors, and may have untreated mental health needs. It's an awful perfect storm of a number of factors, according to Alfie M. Breland-Noble, PhD and founder of the Acoma Project, said about the reasons behind the upward trend. By the way, I raise an eyebrow when I don't see Black male therapists, really cited in these kind of articles, but that's just me. Anyway, Breland-Noble pointed to the fact that young Black men are discriminated against in school and can often be perceived as older than they are. This is real. And some of the data has shown that this can happen as young as 4 years old, where Black males are treated as if they're older than they are. And I've seen this with my own child. And of course, I've experienced it myself. I just didn't know what it was when I was a kid. But I watched it happen with my son. And I saw how people treated him and expected him to know more than he did. And it didn't help that he's been 99th percentile for height and weight his entire life from birth. Just that he was born early. He was a preemie that it wasn't as obvious, but he was always ahead of the curve in terms of height and weight. So people assumed he was further on than he was. He couldn't just be his age. Right? There's also a lack of Black therapists to speak to young Black men about the hardships they face. No matter how well-meaning a non-Black psychologist is, Breland-Noble said, they can't relate to the lived experiences of a young Black man. Well, I'd say one of the things we also found out, some of us found out this year looking at some of the stuff on social media, others of us experienced this directly. You can't always even rely on Black women counselors, therapists. Hell, for that matter, some Black men, because it's often, there really isn't a coherent curriculum in my assessment, where in terms of training for one's license and dealing with therapy as a field, where you're introduced to Black male studies, where you're introduced to scholars that delve into the Black male in a comprehensive and yet humane fashion. I think that's one of the reasons it's so easy to see feminist therapists that tear down Black men at every turn, even when they're treating them. So if you missed that, that was a couple months ago where that really was a topic. And there have been several therapists in social media that were talking mess. Hell, in the last week, we've even seen this hit nurses. I'm not going to go there tonight, but you can find that. There are plenty of posts about the nurses. I think it was in Atlanta that were talking mess. They weren't talking about Black men, although they did take a moment to. They were dealing with women giving birth, and they all worked at the same hospital, and they were complaining about the kind of women they have to deal with, the issues that come up, and they found the time to make men the center point. One of the nurses talked about, the supposed male that had two women in two different rooms having his baby at the same time. Like, they found a way to make black men the center of the discussion on childbirth. Anyway, that shit. But anyway, let me say, they don't understand the concepts that your family has to deal with, the day-to-day stressors. They don't understand racial trauma. They don't understand racism-induced stress, Breland Noble said. Right? And then from there, some of the language goes back to generalities in terms of the black community. Other barriers to help seeking have been mistrust of the medical system and gatekeeping by the black church, said therapist Logan Wilson, who specializes in treatment of black males. Many still believe there's no need to go and sit on a stranger's couch when they can find what they need in the safety and comfort of a pew or in prayer with the pastor. Jones said it's an imperative that we give black men the forum to talk. This is has been one of the most controversial things that I've seen happen in the last few decades, because black men didn't wait for anyone to give them a forum. They took to a medium that was not controlled and began to talk to one another. Other people would come into the space and raise issue with it. But black men took it upon themselves to dialogue with one another. That's one of the reasons I'm here on YouTube, because this has been one of the most unprecedented events in the black community, really in centuries. I've never seen black men speak up as much as they are now about their own experiences and advocate for themselves. Even if some of that, that rhetoric is not what I agree with especially in terms of punishing each other or whatnot, but it's still something that's fairly unprecedented. Anyway, it says the more we talk about it, the more we normalize the conversation. Come on, what's going on my screen here? I do hope my mouse is not giving out. Here we go. Okay. Asking someone if they are suicidal will not increase the risk that they will die by suicide, said Wilson. Inquiring about potential self-harm in a compassionate way may instead provide an opportunity for the person to express their feelings and reach out for help. Says what to look for. Though Jones said it's not always easy to see the signs, there are some things to look for. Notice habits that change. Notice hygiene, mood shifts, increased irritability or agitation, or decrease in activity, not wanting to go or do anything, sleeping more, just having a low mood. Sometimes you have to ask the hard questions and just say, and just not saying things like, "Are you okay?" Experts say you should also point out celebrities like Wayne Brady and Charlamagne the God, who openly talk about their mental health problems, inspiring young black men to open up and kind of go from there. Right. So you can see some of the data here on suicide. 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. Every 11 minutes, someone dies, increased 35% from 99 to 2018. And then you see some of the information there. And I will also share it for you here. Please make sure you take advantage of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Reach out. If you're not willing to do that, reach out to friends. Reach out to those who genuinely care. Not just some part-time folks. But if that's all you have, shit, do that. But I mean, if you can, if those people are available to you, reach out to people that have demonstrated that they genuinely care about you. Please take the time to do that. But I want to put this back up because, hold on. Where'd it go? There we go. I want to put it back up because there are also some other resources listed here. Aside from the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, you have Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective. You got the Beam.community. You got blackmenheal.org. Now, this is interesting. Therapy for Black girls. Why would you put that on a page about black male suicide? That's interesting. Anyway, National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI.org. Look into some of those resources. Take advantage of them. If you want to look through this article in more depth, I posted it. I've listed it in there so you guys can. But I want to talk about the two things on the table, right? So I'm going to put this in the link for the brothers there. Come on up and engage if you'd like. But we're dealing with two things. We're talking about death as the main center point, but it centers around self-deletion and it centers around being a father to a black male child. And I want to hear what some of you have to say on this. Child of Light points out Lee Thompson Young. Yeah, I knew Lee and knew his mother. Right? Robin Williams, Twitch, Jason Dave and Frank to name a few. Yeah, indeed. You know, indeed. So come on up if you so choose. And if you have something to say, something you want to share, please make sure that you do so. The other thing I do, however, want to get into while talking about this is one last component. And I'm purposely using Wikipedia here because I want you guys to know it's easily accessible, right? John Henryism. And this is something that Black men in particular grapple with. We all know the myth of John Henry, steel driving man, but I'll read through some of this so we can at least have a framework for what role this may play, not only in our lives, but also in some of our choices, pondering suicide, right? So John Henryism is a strategy for coping with prolonged exposure to stresses such as social discrimination by expending high levels of effort, which results in accumulating physiological costs, right? The origins of it. The term was conceived in the 1970s by African-American epidemiologist and public health researcher Sherman James while he was investigating racial health disparities between Black people and others in North Carolina. One of the people he interviewed was a Black man who, despite being born into an impoverished sharecropper family and having only a second grade education, could read and write. The man had freed himself and his children from the sharecropper system, had 75 acres of farmed land by age of 40, but by his 50s had hypertension, arthritis, and severe peptic ulcer disease. His name, John Henry Martin, and his circumstances were evocative of folk hero John Henry, an African-American who worked vigorously enough to compete successfully with a steam-powered machine, but died as a result of his effort. Right? So the description, James's hypothesis, was that African-Americans sometimes, and it's not just particularly African-Americans, this can affect all African-Americans, but we're really talking about Black men. And I hate when people skip around that shit. But anyway, his hypothesis was that African-Americans sometimes attempted to control their environment through similar attempts at superhuman performance, which may involve working harder at the office or working longer hours to prove one's worth. I can't tell you how many brothers I've seen throughout my life, family and otherwise, who work at a superhuman level. And so when I hear people dismiss Black men's experiences, efforts, I don't care if it's these, random statements about what we don't build or anything. There's such bullshit to that. There are so many generations of men that died before they were 50, providing for families, trying to do the impossible, and in many respects doing it. But you don't know that. If you just see something like, oh, well, he pulled his family out of sharecropping system. Yeah, that doesn't sound like much unless you understand the sharecropping system. That's the problem. We don't identify superhuman performance when it comes to Black men because the context for what they're dealing with doesn't sound superhuman, especially if you don't know the history or you don't know the context. Even saying something like Black men are not worth your time unless they make six figures, you don't understand how problematic that is until you at least understand that only about 4% of the Black community make more than six figures. That's the only time that kind of stuff begins to have any meaning. Anyway, I'll pull that up another time. Let me continue. James developed a 12-item scale called the John Henryism scale for active coping for measuring this strategy. 3 themes that were deemed important in measuring John Henryism include efficacious mental and physical vigor, a strong commitment to hard work, a single-minded determination to succeed. The scale developed for measuring JH was based on agreement with a series of statements such as these. When things don't go the way I want them to, that just makes me work even harder. I've always felt that I could make my life pretty much what I wanted to make of it. In his seminal 1983 study, 132 Southern working class Black men between the ages of 17 and 60 were administered the John Henryism scale. The scale was used to measure the extent to which these men believed that they could control their environment through hard work and determination. In accordance with the author's hypothesis, subjects who scored low on educational variables and high on John Henryism had significantly higher levels of diastolic blood pressure than those who scored above the median on both measures. James believed that the educational achievement and the John Henryism construct score may have a positive correlation with autonomic arousal in African Americans when these individuals have encounters with everyday stressors, right? So it says effects. Men who scored higher on the John Henry scale were not found to have statistically significant differences in mean systolic blood pressure or mean diastolic blood pressure when compared to the lower scoring counterparts. Okay, so I put the link for that in the chat. You can also go into the pull this down. You can also go into Wikipedia and look at that yourself. But the point is, now this article is talking about the toll it takes on our physical health and our physical well-being. I'm looking at how John Henryism can also affect stress, especially as it relates to self-deletion. And I want us to keep that in mind alongside some of the things the other article pointed out, especially in regard to an 80% increase in self-deletion for Black males. Let me go ahead and bring up two of the brothers here.
Okay.
Let me put this on. We got Brother Artisan MC and Brother Chaos Rain. What's good, fellas?
Good evening, Dr. Johnson.
Good evening.
What's going on, Dr. T?
You, man. How you doing?
Doing my John Henry right now.
Yeah, man. Now, the three of you came in. So we had Artisan, Chaos, and Afro Nerd. Shout out to Afro Nerd.
What's up, Doc?
What's going on? Y'all came in that order. So I want to start with Artisan. Give me your thoughts on what we're talking about tonight.
Okay, I joined the conversation kind of late, but I read the title and was listening to what you were saying about the self-deletion. I'm thinking this is going on about the Stephen Boss Twitch situation and the self-deletion. And, you and I have had these conversations before about brothers really do need to reach out to each other, do their wellness checks on each other, just to check in on your homeboys to make sure they're doing all right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're one of those homeboys that might not be doing all right, reach out to somebody. Self-deletion is not the answer to any of what you're going through. All of this stuff to pass, given enough time. But yeah, I hate seeing another man go down, and then for it to be a brother on top of that, it's just like that's rough. It's a rough way to go. Yeah, shout out to Force Windu.
Yeah.
So. But what you were just talking about, John Henryism, that's what was making me think about it because I'm on call tonight, right? So I'm at work.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher diastolic pressure and stuff like that, the stress involved in that, I'm just thinking about my day and what I dealt with today and being at work and say, yep, that'll probably do it if it was, a different person or so.
Mm-hmm.
That could stress you out to that point to where, why am I doing all this?
Yeah.
No, it's never the way. It's never the way. It's not.
Indeed. Joe Average Brother asked the question, could KS have been a victim of John Henryism? After the conversations I've had with people that had a close relationship with him, I'd say yes. Yes. The man worked around the clock. Yeah. And we all saw him sucking down Red Bulls every 5 seconds. So yeah, he was working around the clock. And he was also servicing people in countries. So he would be taking calls at random times of the day and night from our standpoint, but it was in correlation to people he was helping in other countries. So yeah, I would definitely say. Let's go to Chaos Rain, man. Go ahead and weigh in on this.
DJ Twitch. I'm not familiar with the brother, but I heard that he transitioned like either yesterday or the day after or whatever. And let you know the consequence of, if you're not careful as a Black man, you will overwork yourself to death, even to the point that you will not really, depending on who you're close with, you're not going to reveal your deeper, darker problems or, what they call demons with close friends. And it makes us think as Black men that we should have really working, decent relationship with each other enough. So that way we could come with anything.
Right.
Because now, and as you know, they say that women commit suicide, but we know in America, because we're a small percentage, it's going to be higher on us because the weight of the world is weighing more on us. And there is such thing as Dr. Johnson that you could work yourself dead. That's why I'm not really a proponent when they say what men should be doing. I mean, especially if they're 20 and 30, that they should be doing all this absorbent work. You should be pacing yourself on use your time more effectively as a man. You should not be killing yourself over 50 or 60. If you do it, fine. But let you know there's consequence down the line now. We're not like back in decades ago where you could maybe get away with it. Now, because everything's more easy and convenient, you should space out your time a little better. You should not be doing all these crazy hours.
Yeah.
Now, if you work for yourself to get to a greater goal, then maybe you could do it. But always keep in mind that you gotta have somebody you could trust. Because let's be honest, no one's saving us.
Yeah.
So all this work we do is not going to reap any reward in the long run, besides ourselves.
Right.
That's the honest truth.
Yeah. And as Artisan is reminding me, he's absolutely right. When you look at the suicide practices, particularly in the Black community, but it's pretty much across race, women attempt suicide in greater numbers. Men complete it in greater numbers. That's one of the dynamics we have to pay attention to. They attempt it more, complete it more. And I have a god brother who's several years younger than me. Shout out to my god brother Michi. He has, I want to say he might have 4 or 5 kids at this point, but working around the clock, big family. And again, he's got to be at least 6, 7 years younger than me, or maybe at least 5, but had a stroke very recently. And he's been in the hospital for over a month. He has to relearn how to walk. He has to relearn how to talk, and then got COVID in the hospital on top of the stroke. So he's having respiratory issues. So, shout out to Michi. But a lot of this comes back to, just an extreme amount of work and effort, and just the stress that comes with it. You can't tell me those things aren't factors, right? We're going to go to Afro Nerd and then Sir Truth and then Roaring Sun in that order. Afro Nerd, weigh in on this.
Hey, Doc, how's it going?
Good. How about yourself?
All right. It's kind of ironic with this gentleman, because I really wasn't aware of him up until recently. I mean, I'm talking about only a couple of days ago. So it's kind of weird. I came across his name sometime last week, and I said, okay, who is this guy? Because I'm not an Ellen fan. I'm not an Ellen. I never really checked out Ellen like that. So I just looked him up. And also his name is Twitch. So I was like, okay, what's I'm thinking, was it Twitch, the platform? And I was looking into him. I saw he had a kind of an idyllic family, relatively young. And I'm thinking, because I'm always looking at successful Black people, the ones that appear normal. So if I come across someone who seems like everything is okay, I for whatever reason, I have kind of a sigh of relief. Like, okay, that's another brother that's kind of figured it out and is doing it for himself. So when I see Twitch, rest in peace, I said, what? I just looked up this guy a few days ago.
Right.
So it kind of caught me off guard. Like, what could be going on in this man's life where you feel that this is the only way to deal with it? So, and you leave your family, you have a son and daughters and that kind of thing, and your wife.
Right.
So it we'll never be able to figure this thing out. I will say my thoughts. I feel that we're at a place and a space now where it is imperative for Black men to emphasize themselves. I come across in normal conversation with other Black men, this kind of this acceptance that you just kind of you are a sacrificial lamb. That's just Black life. Whether it's by self-deletion or just reckless behavior. I just found out that from the classic rap period, Granddaddy IU died at 54.
When?
I think within the last couple of days.
Wow.
So, when I speak to my friends, we say to ourselves, if you can make it to 30, you're barely able to make it to 35 if you are a younger person,
right?
And if you are in shape and you're still able to kind of keep it going, 50, Nas is in this age bracket. He's 49, 50. So you say, well, Nas looks like he just came out. He looks fresh to death. Yeah. So, why 54 is relatively young. You should still be able to be thriving and doing your thing,
right?
So it's just troubling that I see, whether it's by self-deletion or poor self-care, that we're at a point where Black men are going to have to publicly what you're doing. We're going to have to speak on it because even our women may not even be aware. Some of them don't care about the need for us to kind of emphasize ourselves. We need to have some black male magic, believe it or not, to kind of say, hey, you know, we are important and we deserve to emphasize our next step. We should be able to thrive. We should be able to thrive.
Well, there are two things. So remember, tonight we're dealing with self-deletion. We're also dealing with the video clip I played from D.L. Hughley, where he was talking about, as a father of a black son, whether or not he had done enough, knowing that the implications of not doing enough could mean the death of our sons from a variety of things. And here's the thing: it can range from anything from police to, you know, drive-bys to self-deletion, right? Those are the things that we as fathers worry about. So you see him in tears around this. So I just want to remind everybody coming up, there are multiple parts to this conversation you can add into. And I want to shout out Jafar Kazim in the comments because he just said something that I think is one of the core elements of John Henryism, especially after the ascent of Generation X. He said, "I just want to be that strong backbone and patriarch that my father never was. My job requires them hours and I have responsibilities, but I do hear and understand." But I want the first part of that sentence is key. I want to be the strong backbone and patriarch that my father never was. That is a load. That is a load unto itself.
That's the Gen X curse right there. That's the Gen X curse. That's a lot of us. Look, him writing it there is me thinking it at the same time, right? It's what a lot of us deal with. Like you saying what D.L. Hughley was just saying about his son, and if he prepared his son enough, that's what'll keep me up at night. Right? If I taught my son everything I could, and everything that would make him mentally strong to where if something happens, his girl leave or lose a job or something like that, he can actually handle that and not be, well, it's all over for me, Dad. This is just it. You know, I don't want to have that damn call. I don't want to have that call, you know, and I worry about that because as parents, you know, there's a point in like training your child to ride a bicycle. At some point, the training wheels is off and you have to let them go and let them pedal or fall, right? But you don't want to see them fall. You know, you'd rather see them, you know, pedal and keep going straight,
right,
and not have to take those bumps. But that's part of being a parent. You got to trust that you train them well enough that they know what to do, even if they fall. But
or worse yet, if there is self-deletion, they don't even think to call you. Meaning, I'm not just talking about they're inconsiderate. No, I'm saying that you don't actually have the relationship with them to where you're a thought, you're a resource to them. Exactly. That's another fear I have as a father, that I've not to be a resource to my son in times of stress. Shout out to Mike M. I just want to say shout out to Mike M. You put the information on Granddaddy IU. Put it on the screen a second ago. Shout out to Granddaddy IU. I didn't know that had happened, but appreciate that, Mike. Finish your statement. I want to bring in Sir Truth. Go ahead, Artisan.
I was just going to say I agree with that, what you were saying, that last part about if you would be a resource for your children to call you. I would say, from my experience, it's rougher when you do not, one of your children or your children are not raised in the home with you. That is a real fear. Because everything society-wise and culturally in the Black community will try to push you out to that fringes of being a person that they rely on to call and stuff like that. Most of my fight has been to still be in there and not have the women that, no, don't worry about your dad. No, I need to be there because they need to know that they can call me no matter what.
Exactly. Sir Truth, and then we're gonna go Roaring Sun, Duquette, Chris, and AJ.
All right. Okay. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity of inviting me up here, Dr. T. Hasan. I hope everybody's having a blessed evening and afternoon, because I know our collective experiences as Black men can be hard at times. And I can just say, from my perspective, man, these last couple of weeks, especially these last couple of months, have been tough on my mental health, man. I've been contemplating suicide so many different times just over these last couple months, man. Just going through my struggles just with mental health from my experience with being molested, man. And what really made it real for me coming out of my adolescence, you know, developing myself as a student, as an athlete, and as an all around person is actually having a chance to firsthand meet some of these younger black boys and black kids that have had similar experiences to me being molested. You know what I'm saying? So in just a general response to that, it's like nobody cares. Nobody gives a fuck about us, man. We're afterthought at times. We're written off as a joke, as a secondhand responsibility. No matter what era, or aisle you come from, or your natural disposition, there's always some fear of uncertainty. There's always this sentiment of doubt that is always placed on us, no matter what we're trying to do. And you know what it really is? It's what you guys have been teaching me, these last couple months, man. Like, and just experiencing stuff out in the world. It's just psychological warfare on multiple different levels. Every time you see something on YouTube or on the news, it's someone like Herschel Walker or another famous black celebrity doing something completely idiotic, being used as a justification for why our communities are so diminished. Like, I don't, even with the Kanye West Kyrie situation, I don't necessarily agree with how they articulated those points in terms of specifically Kanye, but in terms of specifically Kyrie and a little bit of Kanye, a little bit of his perspective, those gentlemen have a point. They got a point, and you can just take a look at how their free amendment to speak has been ultimately just turned against them. Like, they basically got virtually and visually destroyed on multiple different levels. If we're talking about a media level, if we're talking about a general social level, and if we're talking about an economic level, these gentlemen got destroyed for just voicing basic general facts that are supposed to be public information about the control of the media, about the Ashkenazi Jewish control of the economic banking center, which has been that way since the last 5,000, 10,000 years. This is not hidden information. None of these different facets that these gentlemen have brought up, and that gentlemen and people in this space have brought up, none of this information is new information. And the sentiment of John Henryism, it's just this reoccurring sentiment from slavery of just having to overwork yourself because no one has the common decency in society to reach across the aisle and cooperate because of this stereotype. And honestly, I believe in my personal opinion that the stereotype that black men, like I said, are dangerous and violent criminals. That's just a scapegoat. This is a scapegoat to not address the issues of actually developing these black men, because ultimately, like, we're powerful, man. Like,
Well,
we got the capacity to be extremely smart, extremely intelligent, and they don't want us to update the banking center. They don't want us in these avenues of industry because we change stuff.
So true. Let me slow you down for a quick second. Tell me, what are you? Because you mentioned earlier that in some respects you've thought about this. What are you doing? What resources do you have when you get to that point where you're contemplating self-deletion?
I'm trying to find them resources right now. I don't have no real resources besides talking to my black male mentor and stuff like that. But I never, like I said, I mean, like, I'm just being a little bit more specific. My molestation event happened when I was 8, so I never had the therapeutic needs and requirements that I had addressed. And my family was completely closed off to me. They almost did the typical black thing of just trying to hush it up and quiet it up and just push it towards the back because it was a family embarrassment. So that was mentally scarring on another degree.
Mine happened at the same age, 3 and about 8 and 9 years old. So I understand. And it's good that you have a mentor that you're reaching out to. It's good that you're listening to the brothers in the space. I appreciate you coming up and talking about this. Have you thought about therapy? Are you able to do that now?
I'm trying to get involved with the process now, but it's tough, Dr. T. Hasan, because like I said, I'm in community college. I'm a second year sophomore, man. I got work study responsibilities. I got academic responsibilities that I have to manage. And now it's like I'm trying to piece myself together years later when I really should have had this help when I was younger. I should have had this help when
Right.
when the event was far more fresher.
Right.
And like I said, what really hit me is I recently got to meet a kid who was like 10, 12 years old, who was molested just a few years ago recently, and he's
Yeah.
not in therapy. The family's not addressing this. It's like they're kind of looking to me like a mentor figure, and it's kind of heartbreaking because
Right.
I don't know what to do. I didn't address my trauma in the correct way. So many of us walk around with daily afflictions that we
Right.
have just been carrying for years and years on end, and it's like the only way that the trauma gets addressed for us, for our Black boys, is from another damaged Black male. But it's like even that male doesn't know what to do because he has his own trauma, his own afflictions that he's been carrying around
Right.
for
Right.
years and years on end.
Right.
And it's another thing. It's just general, and my bad. I don't want to carry on for too long, but it's just general a nonchalant attitude of a lack of care, and it's ultimately confusing to me, and it's frustrating because it's like, why do you need me to be the mentor that tells you guys you need to put this kid in therapy? You automatically should know that, because if it was somebody of a different complexion or a different ethnicity, then the question wouldn't even be put on my level. It wouldn't even be put in my general realm. You would just automatically
Hold
know.
on.
Is
So
that
what's the
you,
difference?
Sir Pookie? Is that Sir
Yes, it
Pookie?
is. It is.
Oh,
Can
okay.
I ask something really quickly? If you know Sir Pookie or Sir Truth now, you go under that. It's known.
Both is fine.
Okay. It's known, as you know, there's no really thing or facilities that really caters to men, especially Black men, in whole. So if they see a young boy with these problems, they're gonna brush off, because the end game is to see suicide for a lot of males. Because if they're not used in the society, the next best thing is they have to self-delete themselves. So
This is societal insanity, though, because what is ultimately the generational end game for our community development and ultimately our national development? It's
Okay,
degradation and
hold on. Sir Truth. I do want to, Artisan wants to jump in. I want you guys to be brief because I want some of the other brothers who haven't spoken yet to get in on this. But because you are actively a student right now, you should first check resources on your campus to see if usually campuses have a resource in regard to some type of counseling or therapy. And I really want you to look into that.
I did. We only got the counseling and therapy options we have available is potentially only 12 visits, and all the other counselors are more focused on academic needs. There are no real therapeutic counseling or psychological counseling that's specifically geared towards male and trauma.
And I
Doesn't
understand.
exist.
And I understand. Well, it's not that it doesn't exist. It's just there are very few. And that has to do with the number of people who are going into, black male, what I would call black male studies, and the number of brothers who are going into, fields like, that deal with therapy and counseling. But I still want to impress upon you to do those 12 sessions. At least get that. You know what I mean? Get what you can out of it. Because one of the good things about a therapist, especially, and I've seen one after my wife passed for about 5 years, when you get the tools to address problems you haven't had yet, that's the most useful therapy. It's not just somebody trying to give you advice. And as a matter of fact, most of the time a good therapist won't say much, but they'll hold up a mirror at moments that help you kind of see how you're playing into your own kind of issues. But when they can give you coping tools, that's the best kind of work. And I want you to start with those 12 sessions and then ask the question, where can we go from there? I'm gonna let Artisan, because Artisan wanted to drop something to you, and then we're gonna bring in Roaring Sun. But go ahead, Artisan.
Thank you, Dr. T. So, what's going on, Truth? I see you in a minute. I want to tell you first off, and believe me when I tell you this, brother, I care. Okay, I do care. So never think that people don't care. I may get on your butt sometimes, but I do care. You're a young brother. You're too near to me. Okay. So never think that. The other thing is Dr. T hit on one of the things I was going to suggest to you, is that there should be somebody on your campus that you can talk to, because they have especially college students, go through this a lot, right? This is the same thing I was having to counsel my daughter through when she was sitting there stressed and everything else. Okay, you have to be able to talk to somebody. There should be somebody there. They might not be that much older than you, but at the same time, it's more important to actually be able to talk to somebody than to just hold it in and think everybody's against you. Personally, this is one of the reasons why I got into psychology, why I pursued my degree, and one of the things I was trying to get into is to be there to be able to help brothers in your situation. Now, I know it seems really messed up that you were placed in a situation to where you're dealing with a young child who has gone through the same things that you have, and you don't have the answers for him, and really feeling like you have to come up with an answer for him. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to have the answer for him. Maybe the reason that you have been sent that person is to help you find the answers and help him find the answers as well. It's more therapeutic to understand that you don't have all the answers and that you will actually look with that person for them than to just think, well, I got all the answers and I can just tell you how to fix it. It's going to be different for everybody. It's going to be different for everybody. Trust me.
You just being a resource to that young man is going to be huge in and of itself. You being able to hold a space where he can not only come to you in honesty about what he's going through, but you can be honest about what you're going through. That alone is invaluable.
That alone. Thank you, Dr. T. Thank you. That's 1,000% improvement over what you had. This is the way I look at it, Truth. Whatever I didn't have for me, I try to be for somebody else. So if they come to me and they had the same problem that I've had, I know I didn't have anybody there for me. I'm there for them. That automatically is a 200-fold, improvement over the situation I didn't have. In a small way, by helping them, it does help me because it helps me start dealing with this stuff that you may not have dealt with since you were 8. Counseling or not, it's been there. You just maybe not have touched on it or not. But what a counselor and a therapist can do is help you contextualize how you deal with it and how you cope with it. They're not going to have an answer for you because there is no real answer for it, but how you learn how to cope and live and see yourself dealing with all of that stuff. It's a part of it. You have to learn how to deal with that and manage it. Just like the self-deletion ideation, you have to deal with it. Understand it's not a way. You can think about it, but you don't need to go no further with that thought. That's the main point. Excuse me.
Right, and I completely understand that, man. But sometimes it's stuff. Like recently, we had an event on the campus where a brother, he was trying to get financial aid help for weeks and weeks and weeks, and he just finally lashed out. So guess what they did? School called the SWAT team. 15 guys up there, full suited up, shotguns and AKs, and that's how they feel about us, man. I'm tired of watching us brothers kill each other. I'm tired of watching creative brothers that got talent in rapping and graphic design and drawing, all these other different talents, astrophysics, kill themselves, knock themselves off. I can't watch it anymore, man. It's traumatic. It really hit home for me, man, because I recently had an older brother around 30s, 40s. Like I said, he was a rapper. He just released a great project, man, spitting immaculate truth about the stuff that we've been talking about in the space. But the brother killed himself last November because he felt like he was alone, man.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be on that project, man. That stuff it's killing me, man. Like,
that's what I'm saying. You have to understand that you are not alone in this. If anything, this space is good for is to show you are not alone in whatever the hell it is that you may be going through or may have been through. It's enough brothers in the space to tell you, yeah, I've been through that. Yeah, I've been there for that. The only reason they can tell you that story is because they didn't self-delete. That's the important part. That's why you have to understand that you can get through that shit.
Right. You gotta stay here, man. But
the Matrix is real, man.
But I will tell you this, man. In helping that boy, you not only are helping yourself, but you're giving someone else an opportunity, which can be very healing in and of itself. Because he's, in a certain respect, you know him. You've been him. So give him, like the saying, give him the help you didn't get, and really focus on being there for him. And you'll find that some of that will be healing for you. but I still encourage you to go get the 12 sessions you can get. And as was stated in the chat, perhaps the counselor might be able to refer you somewhere else afterwards. But start with what you have, man. Start with what you have. I want to bring Roaring Sun into this. We're talking about really black male death. We're talking about it in terms of suicide. We're talking about it in terms of the worries of a father losing his son because he hasn't prepared him enough for the world. That was the clip we played from DL Hughley earlier. But Roaring Sun, weigh in on this. And if anybody else who hasn't spoken yet, when you get your turn, if you got something to add for Sir Truth, please extend that. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for sharing all these resources tonight. I'm glad you can share it with some of the brotherhood, not just on the panel, but in the chat. I want to thank everyone for sharing. It's almost about 10 years. One of my homies, he had to take the self-deleting route. He had some family court issues going on. And he felt he couldn't cope anymore. He was a veteran, good brother, man. Rest in peace to that brother. So there is a lot of pain that brothers are going through, and there's a lot of pain in the space. And I remember all the things he kept saying was he just wanted to be with his son. And he wanted to help raise his son. And that really stuck with me even to this day. And his situation just kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. And the thing is, I was dealing with something at the time too. And I dealt with my situation by doing the self-care route, got the passport and got away for a couple weeks. And I came back and found out he had a funeral.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't there to see it.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of pain in just being black and existing in blackness, man. And it really, I'm glad you brought up the John Henryism piece. That's one of the things I really wanted to comment on. It seems like black men specifically, like we're only really valued for everything outside of ourselves based on what we can produce. We're pretty much, I think I heard it said wallets with penis attachments. We're not actual people sometimes. And we kind of just bury ourselves into what we do, rather than who we are and maintaining ourselves physically and emotionally. I just want to encourage the brothers to do that. Yeah. If you got to get away, get away. The picture in my avatar right now is a sunset in a Caribbean island. This is something I do all the time. I got to get away. As soon as I step on the sand, all that bothers me melts into it. So just please find whatever gives you peace. Find it. Yeah. Stay there as long as you can. Get all this trauma out of you as best as possible. I know you're going to get some of these Chabri Raw people who are going to come out here and they're going to tell you you need to fix yourself for the world around you. Do it for yourself. Yeah. You are worthy of that. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Oh, man. Thank you. And I want to also urge people as well, if you've never considered it, look into meditation. Be surprised how many resources you can find just in that. A lot of us don't understand meditation. We think it's just about sitting there and being as quiet as possible. That's not what it is. There are ways that you can actually release a lot of the stress from learning how to meditate. So please look into that, especially if you don't have any other resources, but you should anyway. You should look anyway. Let's go ahead and let Duquette in here. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
It's Duke CT, and hi everyone. No worries. Yeah, and what's up, Afro Nerd? I haven't heard from you in a while, man. And this space is definitely needed because John Henryism is basically, one of the most sad part is it's like it's connected to black folk for so long. You look at, for example, the late Chadwick Boseman. He worked so hard when he had that cancer diagnosis. He didn't slow down, right? He kept doing movies and shoots, and he was still working out. And if he was still here, he would probably still be doing, Black Panther Wakanda Forever while still being in that diagnosis and not resting. And you have to sit and wonder, if he, maybe he had a little more time left if he wasn't doing these acting gigs or producing gigs and such, but
Mm.
it's been driven in us since birth that we have to work 20 times harder, 30 times mentally better, everything, to the point that by the time we are even close to like retirement age, we can't sit down and relax. We have to keep going and going and going until, you know, either we self-delete or the body just stops working. And it's, to me, you know, I just hope that we get there's the actual help, not only with each other but everyone else. I mean, you know, black men are just so, yeah, like I said, it's just we're being just so born into that mindset. And until I think that mindset needs to just be halted and such, and you know, and look and say, okay, you need to relax, man. You need to relax. And like I said, meditation is something, you know, to look into, or, you know, therapy, and, you know, talking to people or listening to some people and such, you know. And I'll just go, you know, just like what Warren's son said, just like, you know, find some place that calms you down. Find something that actually makes you happy. You know, it could be going to the, you know, going to islands somewhere, getting your passport and going somewhere. It could be, you know, you working on like some stuff like that, or just sitting back or playing a video game or something. I mean, just find a way to find a little peace within yourself. And I think that is something that most black men need to hear, because I mean, it's what Sir Truth pretty much talked about, is that we are not, we are always looked upon as villains. We are looked upon, no matter how good a portrayal of our, you know, every type of representation and such, it is still looked upon as villains. And it just, you know, it can break even the strongest men and such, you know. And I think one day, hopefully, you know, it will turn soon, that we will be looked as not as villains, not as eternal workhorses or walking phalluses and such.
Yeah.
It is, we're looked on as human beings. You
That's
know,
right.
we're not meant to be, it's like, okay, take all the bullets and, you know, all these type of things. You know, they think they just bounce off us, but no, you know, they still hurt. You know, they still are right there, man. And it's, you know, we don't show it as much, but man, when the black folk break down, it's not a pretty sight. You know, just as I say, is just be, you know, just be good to each other. Always have an open ear and an open mind to people, like not just the Sir Truth, but everybody here in this chat and also in this space, man, because we're all we got right now. So be safe, everyone. Be safe.
Appreciate that. That was Duke CT. I'm not trying to remember that. Okay, the order kind of got jumbled around on my screen. I'm not sure who was next. Let me see.
Maybe AJ.
Okay, AJ, can you go ahead and drop a word in here?
Yeah, can you gentlemen hear me well?
Now we can, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. It was a slight pause on my side. Appreciate it for having me on here. I've been a long time listener since about 2019. Just never really had the opportunity to call in and give some of my point of views, but I enjoyed what artists in MC had to say.
You're Borging pretty bad. Can you hear it?
True. Give you a quick little overview. I'm in Dallas. Okay, 1 second.
Can you guys hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you much better.
Okay, cool. So, you know, I resonate with a lot of things that Artisan and Sir Truth has said, long-time listeners since about 2019. I'll give you a quick overview into this subject. I'm one of the rising DFW, I'm out of Dallas area, Texas, one of the rising DFW hip-hop artists, and I also work in the educational field. I believe, Dr. Hasan, that you had covered a case where there was actually a young artist in my area by the name of Lil Loaded. He actually committed suicide this year, I believe, ended up shooting himself in the head over a case of pretty much his mental health just breaking down and the situation over a female. So I've been noticing a trend a lot over the past 3 years with Black men and just men in general kind of jump into the self-deletion process. Me working with kids, I work in an area pretty much with middle school and high school teens that pretty much have like mental health issues, entrenched within the criminal justice system. And I work with a lot of Black boys, seeing them be placed at the school I work at. The Black boys are the highest rate for special ed. And I
Right.
see, I'm balancing out the fact that, hey, I got guys that are bringing guns to schools, and they're trying to fight for the life, or trying to deal with a kid and not trying to have them delete themselves every day. So
Mhm.
it gets pretty heavy. And it's definitely resources out here. Sir Truth, I know that he's listening, especially being on the college campus. Like, yeah, they do have kind of different counseling services where even if you speak with a counselor, sometimes they will have, a different option where they can kind of redirect you to perhaps another practice where they can kind of extend further. So that should be something you could look into. But, for me, just me working in the educational field where I'm at, it's heavy. I'm seeing like the subjects that you talk about, Dr. Hasan. I try to, watch every episode I can, right?
Appreciate
I'm
it.
seeing it in real time with the kids. These are kids that are, age 12 to 18, 19, and they're messed up, man. From being let down by their parents, kids, being hooked on drugs, high accessibility to drugs, unbalanced mental. I've had over 6 students that have tried to delete themselves,
Yeah.
dealing with cutters, and this is heavy, so even me, I've had days where, I'm not gonna lie, me being as an artist, I've had days where I felt like I wanted to delete myself over different, situations I've had in my life, with abuse and other things like that. But, really the catalyst for me not to do that has been the thought process of like, I just feel like as a Black man, especially me being 24, I feel like I would be kind of going the easy way out in the sense where we would just prove society's point that, Black men are pretty much unstable. And the next best method for us to seek mental health is just for us to delete ourselves.
Well,
Go
I'm
ahead.
going to comment on that because that's significant. The first time I ever thought of doing it, I was in grad school. I was doing my master's and I did it in a year, but that was kind of the cost. I came close to something that I never really knew existed, and I was out in Philadelphia. I didn't have any family or friends. It was incredibly isolating. I spent, especially, my first time in snow, because I didn't know nothing about snow. I'm a California boy in terms of, where I've been raised. So it kept me indoors. I was very isolated and I really thought about it for the first time. But what kept me going was just this, again, I've said this and I've even played it on my channel. I remember I used to listen to this old KRS-One song, and the refrain of the song was "Stay alive, all things will change around." The song is called "Oh Yeah." And I just remember playing it over and over and over because sometimes you can't anticipate what's going to stick in you. You can't anticipate what's going to give you life. And for me, it was that particular verse. And then I remember a couple months later, I actually finished. I moved back to California, and all of a sudden I was around my people, I was around my friends. And the thing about it was, I felt so good. I heard a voice in that moment say to me, what would have happened in terms of the beauty of this moment? What would have happened if you had taken yourself out? If you'd convinced yourself that there was nothing more to life but the pain you were in that moment, you wouldn't be here now to enjoy it. And since then, the ups and downs of life, I try and keep that in mind, because when you're at your happiness, that might be when you need to remind yourself that there are times where you didn't think this would ever happen again. And it did. And it does, because life has changed. It's inevitable on one level or another. But if you don't allow yourself to live, you're not here to experience it. So let it come around. Let it come back around. Let me see. Chris, you want? Oh, I'm sorry. Was somebody saying something?
Yeah, I was going to jump in on this, but I don't think Chris got a chance to say anything yet. So go ahead.
Okay, Chris, well, go ahead and weigh in on this, and then I'll give Artisan a chance to complete his thought.
Man, first I want to express my gratitude for being in this space. I've hosted a Black male space for 2 years now. It'll soon be 3. But and I do it every Tuesday from 7 to 9:30 p.m. And it was really born out of the fact that, you know, I hit a wall personally, where like I didn't realize how much I was groomed and how much we were bred to really master any pressure that comes our way, no matter how bad it is, and not let it, you know, overwhelm us. And that's a masculine instinct, right? So I'm not trying to demonize the instinct, because that's you know, we need that to be who we are. But the problem is not facing the pressure or dealing with it. The problem is when you're just supposed to live with it, where you're supposed to accept being overwhelmed constantly. You're supposed to accept no way out. You're supposed to accept doom, that this is just how it is, and you're supposed to live with it. That's really what kills us, honestly. And unfortunately, this is not to diminish suicide or self-deletion, but I don't want to focus on that like it's really different from a Black male who dies in his 40s or 50s, and he's just fine. Like it's really the same thing, because you're telling yourself you're living for yourself, you're doing, you know what I'm saying, what you want to do. And let's just say if you have the best situation where, like Kevin Samuel, so to speak, you're living life on your terms, right? Like that's very rare to get to, where you're actually doing what it is that you want to do on a daily basis. And then God forbid you still end up, you know, passing away while you're in your 50s. And because the reality is, for 99% of Black males, that's not the reality. And that's not even close to being the reality. It really is that as Black males, we have to get accustomed to doom. We have to get accustomed to a rat race, a maze. And pretty soon, I mean, the car just breaks down. You know what I'm saying? Like the car just simply breaks down. And when you're accustomed to doom, the only thing that you learn how to do is make fun of it when you can. You know, you find your outlets for pleasure. But when you fundamentally know that there really is going to be no change in your circumstances, and see, this is not necessarily even about achievement. This is about the fact doom is not just about a glass ceiling. It's about the fact that you know that in order to even cross the finish line, you have to crawl like Andy Dufresne through 4 football fields worth of crap. That's when that's your only way forward. Like, yeah, you will, as a man, as a Black man, will be like, okay, I'll do that. But it actually costs your body to go through 4 football fields worth of crap. It's not like the movies where, oh, you just get to the finish line after crawling through 4 football fields worth of crap and then you live happily after. That's not how the body works, you know, and that's not. And it's difficult to come to that realization that here we are working our tails off and for whatever it is that we want. And what we have to put up with is really killing us in order to get there. And what we're trying to get is simply meant to qualify us for what it is that we actually want. Like, that's actually how it is for us as men. You're making money, you're setting aside for a future family because saving prudently and building wisely in your career so that, God willing, you can get to a point of beyond failure. That simply qualifies you to have a family. Then you actually have to get one, right? And you have to get one that's actually honorable for the sacrifice that you put in, which, as we know from listening to Kevin Samuel's show, you know, none of these women are socialized to even respect the John Henry level sacrifice that you have to put in for these achievements. So,
well, let me say something. I want to give Artisan a chance to weigh in, and then since everybody up here has had a chance to speak, we can just open it up to more of a freestyle now that everybody's had a moment to drop something. But let me say two things real quick. First, on this question of finding solutions, I want to be clear that the dialogue we're having right now is one of the solutions, because there are a lot of people that don't have someone to sit down and face to face and talk to. So if it takes YouTube to do it, then do it. You know what I mean? If this is an opportunity you have to engage and you don't have anybody in front of you, do it. This is one of the solutions. Meditation is a solution. Reaching out to the hotline, the suicide hotline, is a solution. You know what I mean? There are a lot of different ways to approach this, and I don't want people to leave here thinking that this is just, up here just to be happening. I'm really pushing for us to reach out in some way, shape, or form. And I wanted to have brothers extend the solutions they found, not only from my life experience, from y'all's life experience. I've showed you a little bit of the data, I've showed you some research on John Henryism. And I want to remind you of one other concept, and then I'm going to open it up to Artisan. The concept I talked about earlier this year, I called it male relationship emotional labor. In other words, this type of emotional labor that's expected of men in relationships and in the community, really. This whole question of Black men lifting up the community and so on and so forth. These are different types of labor that you are expected to perform. And when you have nothing left in the tank and people still come at you with these expectations, it can be enough to make you snap. And sometimes it may really feel like what do they call it? The straw that broke the camel's back. There's a moment when other people's expectations of you, when you are vulnerable and you just don't have another step in you, can feel like enough to break you. And I want you to be cognizant of other people's expectations. And sometimes you need to be in a position to check them on that, to let them know you're not in a position where you can really do that. Now, obviously I'm not talking about food, clothing, and shelter. We got to do the things we got to do to the best of our ability. But sometimes people expect every drop of energy from you simply because they expect it. And we got to develop enough wherewithal to be able to set boundaries with people. You know what I mean? I can't do that today, or I'm not in that space. We got to be able to articulate that, because here's the thing, nobody else will. Nobody else will. And if you find yourself in relationships where the resources only go one way, where you don't find yourself benefiting in any serious way from this connection with this person, you may actually need to reflect on whether or not certain relationships need to stay in your life. There is nothing wrong with actually ending some relationships, especially if they're toxic. So we haven't even gotten to toxicity. We're just talking about people having expectations of you that, are, if you don't have any boundaries, can be a problem. But if it's a toxic relationship on top of that, we also need to be able to cut out unhealthy relationships as a way of as a demonstration of self-care. That's another element to this I want us to think about. But Artisan, go ahead and jump in on this. And then from there, we can just open it up and y'all can free flow.
Okay, I got a couple of points because you guys were dropping a lot of gems in there. I will say the first thing, there's two things as a man you should always be able to do. One of them, Dr. T says all the time, which is know when to walk away. Know when to walk away. The other one is learn how to say no.
Yes, sir.
Plain and simple, because that's a boundary setter right there. And anybody who gets upset when you say, no, I can't do that, no, I don't really want to be involved in anything like that. Anybody who gets upset, that's the person electing themselves to get out of your life. And that's what you need to start understanding. So
Yeah.
that'll keep you and reduce a lot of your stress right off the bat. Knowing when to walk away and knowing how to say no. The other thing I was going to say, back to who was it? Rising Sun, Roaring Sun. I told him in the back chat about the whole sun that he has on his icon. It's something that I gravitate to, and you guys will see it a lot floating around my channel and stuff like that, that I always post sunrises. And the reason I post sunrises was because I went through my dark time when I had my own little self-deletion idealization about loss of my family and marriage and everything else. And I was standing in the field before the sun came up early morning, just thinking about how terrible life all was and everything, and went to pot and it was all over and everything else. And the sun came up, and I stood there in that grass, frozen over, and I watched the sun come up and melt that ice away. And I felt it melting away on my heart, and understanding that, look, everything changes. Life goes on. You will go on too. And that's what I heard watching the sun come up. And since that day, 2013, I see sunrises every day. I watch a sunrise, I watch a sunset. Because no matter what I'm going through, no matter how stressful it is, I understand that I'm supposed to be here to see it. And it'll be gone tomorrow. Tomorrow it's going to be over with. And not because I self-deleted, but because personally, I'm stubborn. I won't give anybody else the satisfaction of me taking myself out. I'm not going to let them understand that, oh, I got to and we broke them. F you. No, I'm not. I'm too stubborn like that. No. So, like somebody else said in the chat, I'm going to be here to spite you, regardless. I don't care what's going on. No, I'm not doing that. The other point was, excuse me. Excuse me. Definitely reach out. There's always brothers out there that are going through it. And this channel, Dr. T.S.'s channel, just the Black Manosphere in itself is a resource for you to be able to go to and talk to other brothers. All these panels that go on every day of the week talking about if and everything, there is not a problem for you to pop in there and bring up a conversation that you want to talk about that's concerning you. I don't think that's out of bounds. I would prefer it as opposed to some of the other BS we get into talking about. But never think that you're alone. None of this. You're not. There's too many people on the planet for you to be alone. That's it. I forgot my other point.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in?
Chris, you gonna say something?
Yeah, my father struggled with suicide when I was in high school. And to be a father and struggle with, like, fathers are the epitome of strength. Like, because you know that you have a responsibility beyond yourself. And there's so much love that is in a father. That no matter what he's dealing with, to be here for his family, for his children, his flesh and blood. And for a father, who's willing to cut off his own arm, so that his children could have food. For him, of all people, to suffer the pressure of suicide and God forbid give in, it's just, it's really no words to describe that kind of pressure. And I'm not, diminishing suicide that's faced by Black males at large, but I just bring that up because it actually goes to why, in my opinion, Black male suicide is an epidemic. It's because we have so much promise, skill, talent, work ethic, resilience. But when you honestly do not see a way for your promise to be real, when you honestly do not see a life past the curse that society has made you into, that, you know, which is what led off tonight's show, which is where, by virtue of having a black son, you know that his very being has been weaponized against him.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Period. From the cradle to the grave, his being has been weaponized against him. Like, that's and the problem is that as we grow older as black males, we're encountering that reality where no matter if we go left or right, it's nothing but warfare in our communities, in our families, and beyond them. And
No.
you know, that's just something that's, you know, really coming up that I just wanted to.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I want to bring in Colonel Faulkner in a minute to give a comment, but I wanted to share.
Johnson, I'm about to jump down. Thank you. Tonight's show.
Oh, you about to jump down? All right.
Yes. For anybody else want to jump, but that's why I'm gonna jump down. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chaos. I want to show y'all something. This is something that Artisan was talking about a minute ago. Because anybody that's on my Facebook page knows that I'll put up exotic, natural environments up at random just because they bring me peace. But this was actually something that I recorded when I was driving. Because what I used to do is every month I'd head out to the coast, which is about 3.5 hours away, and I like to sit on the beach and watch the sunset. That brings me peace. Right. And once I found something that brought me peace, it's something I try and rehearse. So this was one day I actually took the top down and I recorded myself. It's about 20 seconds. I ain't saying nothing. I'm just driving. At least I don't think I said anything. Hopefully I didn't. But anyway, sometimes this is the kind of stuff you got to do to remind yourself what your peace is. So I'll just go ahead and let it play. That's it. There ain't much more than that. It doesn't happen. For me, watching that clip reminds me that there are times when things are good. There are times when things can be peaceful, and and reminding myself of that brings me peace. Whatever brings you peace, explore it, figure out what it is, and rehearse it like a religion. Even if it is religion, whatever it is for you, engage it. I don't care how other people think about it. I don't care what it looks like. Find your peace. Let me go ahead and let Officer Faulkner in on this. What's good, man?
All together now. Woo! Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
How can I say this? I never told anybody this, but so many people who are subscribers of yours, BGSs, and myself, or usually people find my channel through you or BGS, have emailed me about situations that's going on in their life that are stressful. And some of them are, men who want to talk and get some advice because they feel like deleting themselves.
Yeah.
And like I've always said, a black man can never have a bad day. Maybe I could say that again for the Negroes in the back who didn't listen. Black men were always looked at like we can't have a bad day. We're supposed to be so strong that no one ever asks us if we're okay. We're supposed to be the guys who takes it on the chin when you keep our kids away from us for months or years at a time. We're supposed to be the guys who can't get upset at the fact that we're not getting paid like everybody else, or you cheat us out of our overtime. We're supposed to be the guys who, we went into the military, we get out, and you want to block our blessing called benefits. We're the ones who you say, why don't we build, but yet you burn up all the tools that we can create with.
Mm-hmm.
Think of how much pressure is put on a black man. You got to be twice as good to get it, 3 times better to keep it, and 4 times better to even be slightly in knowledge. And all that pressure just boils to black men. I mean, look at just what's going on. We're held to middle class, ethnocentristic European standards. You got a black boy who's 12 years old, and he's held to middle class, ethnocentristic white man standards. By the time he's 18, you're supposed to be making 100,000.
Yeah.
We work ourselves to the bone. For what? For what?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Do you know how many times so many brave brothers talk other black men from deleting themselves?
Mm.
Who are your police and your firefighters, your military personnel? There's a lot of people who are not mass shooters who didn't harm their ex-girlfriend or wives or children because another black man had something called empathy for each other. You know, and it's sad. Think about it. I keep hearing the trope that black men don't take care of kids, but today I had a parent-teacher conference. One of my other best friends took the day off to volunteer at his daughter's school. And one of my other best friends, he went to his assembly to his son's school, and all of us live with our kids. We don't even get acknowledged. We get pushed to you're supposed to do it.
Mm.
When black women do it, we're going to have a ticker tape parade down at Times Square. When black men do it, you're supposed to. We're the supermen with a job to do.
Mm.
And frankly, I tell a lot of black men, and I even told the good brother, not going to mention names, you know, when you need it, call me anytime. I don't give a damn if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd rather you call me 3 o'clock in the goddamn morning than I wake up to a Facebook post or a YouTube notification that you did something to yourself or somebody else that I could have talked you out of it.
Right.
The fact of the matter that we need to have outlets as men, we need to have hobbies, comic books, video games, the gun range. Sometimes a good cognac and cigar soothes the soul.
Yeah.
Stop being ashamed of being a man. Stop being ashamed.
Say that again for the people in the cheap seats.
Stop being a man, being ashamed of being a man. Stop being a
Preach.
Guess what? Look, yes, I'm gonna go watch me some goddamn Man of Steel, and I'm gonna make sure a man can fly. That's how you should go out every day. Look, I'm gonna try the best that I can. I may not accomplish everything I will, but I'll be damned if I'm not gonna work for everything I'm gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
And be proud of each step, each failure, each victory. And don't let anybody tell you you're not doing your best. And also, even if you're shaky about giving people your phone numbers, at least give them an email that they could contact each other. There are so many young men out there, so many young men who don't understand it's okay to fail.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay not to be the best at it right now. I just had the Padawan with me at the outdoor range, and he was having trouble shooting. I said, it's okay to fail. You're supposed to fail. This is the time to fail, because when it's a real gunfight, you want everything to be perfection. We got to stop putting on look, at some point we got to say it is not our cross to carry and our burdens to bear.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going through some issues with children's mothers, ex-wives, jobs, guess what? There's a good old pill called fuck it all. And sometimes you need to take a day or two, excuse my language, and just go where you get peace. Like Dr. T said, go where you can get mental help. Don't be afraid of the professionals. Don't be afraid to talk to your brother. I swear to God, my couch, many of men cried on it. And I looked at them, and we looked at each other, none the lesser. Get it out. Because when you keep things inside, it becomes destructive energy.
Yeah. Yep.
And I've seen it too many times in my personal and professional life. Look, it's okay to tell another brother you love him.
Yeah.
It's okay to tell him that. It's okay. You know what? I got love for each and every one of you on the panel and in the chat. In case nobody told you that. Hell, even my cat sitting beside me got love for y'all. Right, Marco Pichu? But
there's a
you
joke
know,
there somewhere. But I'm gonna leave it alone. Let it alone. That
You called
cat.
the cat Machu Picchu. That's why. That was a joke.
cats love me too, but still, I mean, insider. But anyway, for my closing, because I know I'm taking up a bunch of time. Stop. There's a little thing because I'm kind of jealous of Dr. T with his Lithium X, and there's a point that Kratos said. You know, we're not supposed to be perfect. We're just supposed to be better.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to. Then he pulls it out. The burn, right?
Look, man, put that down. What are you doing?
You know, he's out there
Hurt you and
clashing with.
Charles Phillips.
You know, he's out there clashing with Monia. You know, and it's funny because if you look at the stories like, Man of Steel, God of War, it's a father and son adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And what did they always say? When the father becomes the son and the son becomes the father.
Yes,
Look,
sir.
you want to grow into the fact that, guess what? When I like I told my son, I want to give you your inheritance while I'm still living, so I can see you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm raising you hard so I can spoil my grandchildren. If I raise you easy, I gotta raise my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Doc, I want to say something very brief,
Go ahead.
and I'll have to exit. I was just sitting here thinking, and I'm really appreciating the conversation with the gentleman. But I'm also thinking that, this conversation, someone mentioned it before, is integral. It's important. Just doing what we're doing. And I'm very heavily invested in the manosphere, the Black manosphere, especially because you said it before. Up until recently, we really haven't heard Black men singularly or as a collective actually speak or have an opinion. And when you do have one, it seems to be problematic. So,
right.
But what I do think also is, I think that what's afflicting Black males especially is the ignorance and the apathy component. If there's a way to deconstruct those two things, that is everything.
Okay.
On the Afro nerd tip, with what my imprint, it has a lot to do with my obsession with comic books and sci-fi and all that kind of stuff, but it also deals with the Black spin on it, and whether some of the real life Black heroism versus the fictional stuff.
Right.
So when you actually go through the story, and again, I'm very sensitive to the young man who contemplated self-deletion and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but I think what's missing is really our push for even having a say in our agency. So the closer we get to actually being able to have some points where men can say, boys to men looking at certain things, say, oh, wait a minute, that's powerful. I feel that, because we have this programmed obsolescence that is for real, where you start to see this kind of timeline of, just all these people that are pushed out in front of us that seem to be failing. Like just the constant failure of Black males is distinct from what is actually happening in reality. We do have stories to point to where Black men have figured it out, but we can't seem to get that promoted. I think thinking about people who lived short lives, George Washington Williams, who was portrayed by Sam Jackson, but he's portrayed kind of like as a butler, sort of. This man died at 40 or 41 and was like a lawyer, and he disclosed the atrocities in the Congo. He was a politician. This guy did 10 or 15 different, this might be more John Henryism, but he had all these things going on, and he died at 41.
You talking about his portrayal? Was it Tarzan?
Tarzan.
Okay.
Tarzan.
Yeah.
He's more interesting than Tarzan. That's the part. Bass Reeves, his story, how he had to even go after his own son for, I believe, killing his wife, his son's wife. And he still upheld the law. like and silver bullets and Tonto in tow. All of that stuff that we know to be the Lone Ranger was actually a black man. Like those kind of things get my juices flowing. And yet
You find inspiration in that. Yeah.
I do. And I think the issue is, if you keep on seeing the baby, little baby, a blue face, just this constant menstrual dysfunction, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So this is why it's important that your platform and others, that we start to actually get this thing going. When I think of what happened to poor Kevin Samuels, I didn't agree with everything, but I thought that he was tracking properly, and he was, older, able to turn it around to become significant in a short amount of time, and he's gone. So we've got to figure out a way to kind of get away from that narrative, because it is figuratively and now literally killing us.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I also want to add into something like this, because you see the same people who don't know those stories about Bass Reeves and the person who talked about Tarzan. Instead, they'll say, "Oh, let's have a black Tarzan instead, or have a black version of all these things." I'm like, what is this? It's this. It comes back to not just either John Henryism or is this weird self-hatred that the only way to actually matter is to have just a palette swap. And it's just, I don't know what, I just think that is something that I look even like in the movies and such, like, oh, we need to have a black Superman or this. I'm like, no, there are other characters. In fact, there are other series and other places. Yeah, there's other things instead of just having to glom on to. I'm just exhausted of people just like saying, "Oh, we got a crumb. I'm so happy. This is amazing." And I'm like, there is, instead of a crumb, there are like full sets of like table. The whole thing is set up right there. In fact, if you don't like, I saw many comic books and many stories and such, about having black superheroes and all this type of stuff, and it's just the table is there set up, but instead we have this self-hatred, and mixed with this John Henryism, we ignore this stuff. We ignore stories like Reginald Lewis, or what your person right there says, and Bass Reeves. Yeah, Bass Reeves. All these, too. Yeah. I mean, it's just
don't forget
yeah, there's so many more. And the worst part is that these black men and such die young, and their stories are not even told. Their stories are forgotten. They're just forgotten and just paced off. And worse, they're the sidekick character. Like you said about the person next to Tarzan. He's the sidekick. Meanwhile, he has such much interesting, rich history. It's just, I don't know. And I'm about to head out too. That's why I want to say this. But I think that's the one thing we have to learn, and have to embrace not just stories about the elders and such, but also see that maybe we shouldn't be all working to death and such, and things like that. Celebrate the people that they are here, and embrace their stories, embrace their type of deeds and such, instead of just waiting until like some breadcrumb about like, oh my gosh, Spider-Woman's black and she's gonna be in the new Spider-Man animated. About, yay, that's great. I'm like, no, there are things there. Embrace that, instead of just running towards the same studios who, Sony Studios, who said racist things and such about when that whole thing leak came out, or it's about Denzel and whatever. So why are we still just running towards these companies instead of actually start building this stuff? In fact, supporting people who built these things as such. And that's all I have to say. Be safe, love each other, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.
All right. Appreciate you, Duke. Thanks for coming through. Any other? Go ahead, Artisan.
I was going to say, to Night Raven's question that he had in there about black male therapists not being easy to find. we're about 2%, I believe it was, of the psychology profession, and we need to be more. So the reason that there's not more Black therapists is because we don't go into studying psychology and stuff like that. Because for the most part, the first thing you get is that you're going to college. The other thing is that you're getting a bullshit degree. That's the stuff that you hear right off the bat, and it's not the case. Going into psychology as a Black male, you have a group already set aside for you if you go through the training, get your degrees, get your PhD, and actually set up shop. You can be the funnel for that big pie that's waiting to talk to Black males, to have a Black male to actually talk to. But if you're not there, if you don't do it, there's not going to be enough of us there. I'm one of them, right? My degree is in psychology to be a therapist. That's why I know what the percentage is. It's really low because it gets flooded with primarily Caucasian women and then other women of different nationalities. You have to get into these fields for them to be more of us. They're out there, but you have to find them. And I do believe they have a network. They do have a network together because at least the brothers try to network with each other. But no, it's not a lot. But if you don't go into it, it's not going to be a lot either. I think Charles Faulkner has talked about this many a time before, about Black male police officers, Black males in the military. If you don't go into these fields, there ain't going to be none of us there. You have to go into. So that was the one thing. Excuse me.
I want to mention one quick thing. I promise I'll exit. I'm thinking of something that happened during the Million Man March. I was able to go to the Million Man March in '95 with my dad. And the irony is, and I'll just confess, I still have my father. I lost my mother a few years ago. It was very painful. But thank you. But my father, we have a kind of a comical, very close relationship even to this day, and he said to me, well, they're going to the Million Man March and you weren't alive for the first Million Man March. First March on Washington. So he said, we don't really need to do this, but because it looks like it might be something historic, maybe me and you should go. So we went, and I took one of my friends who had he was a young father. His child at the time was maybe like 5. And he said, look, I'm not going to be able to bring my son because, he's just too kind of young to be walking and all that kind of thing. So we go on this thing, and it's just like Spike Lee's The Bus. On the bus.
Get on the bus. Yeah.
Get on the bus. All kinds of Black folks, all kinds of social strata and all of that. And, even there's some weed smoking on there. I was like, wow, you can't even put down the bud for Minister Farrakhan. The little things in my head, it was like, wow, this is difficult. Like just kind of connecting with each other. But when it finally happened, it was impactful. But the most impactful thing that happened to me with my father wasn't between me and my father. It wasn't us. It was my friend who was somewhat estranged from his father, looking at my relationship with my father. And again, to this day, we crack jokes. I could just talk to my father like I'm talking to you guys. So he pulled me to the side. He said, I never saw that before. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I never saw like how I never saw like the father and son, like you and your dad. I never saw that before. And it took me back. I didn't know how to react to it because I said, this is just what we do. But that's when I realized, wow, that lack of fatherhood and not being able to connect and have an authentic father-son relationship is damaging to Black people. I'll be honest with you, when I see it, the deficiencies in Black men, because I came from a different situation, I'm very sensitive to it because, wow, I kind of see what happens when you don't have that father. My father has never disappointed me. I will say that directly. When it came down to going to goofy blur stuff, going to comic book conventions, and going to parent-teacher conferences, my father was always there. So that Million Man March thing, it was very enlightening And I wish that social media, maybe if things were different, I wonder if that situation might have been more impactful if it happened today with the technology and kind of the manosphere at play. Would it have been a little different?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where you went? How old were you when you went there?
Oh man, I was in my my early 20s.
I went there when I was like 13, 14.
Wow.
Yeah, I was there as well. I think I was early 20s. Yeah.
Damn, y'all old. But anyway,
that's why I didn't want to say anything.
Shut up, Charles.
Good to be the young man here. Good young man, young experienced man. It's funny because I've always told people, when my wrestlers find out how old I am, they're like, "We thought you were younger than this." I said, "We're black. We're supposed to look younger than this."
Trust me, I get that.
And
I love it. And I love it.
Always joke with me like, "When do you think we could take you, old man?" I said, "I'm gonna tell you the same thing this Green Beret once told me." He says, "Beware the old man in a profession where the good die young." that guy's been a reason.
Yes, sir.
So he's very dangerous, and it's funny when people look at the dad's kind of thing. It's like you'll see me and my dad hang around or talk, or or my son, and people will look at us and he'll be like trying to geek and joke, and we're joking on each other. And it's funny because a lot of men miss that. It's like, showing my son how to wrestle and box and take him to the range to show him how to shoot. That's why when that scene in Black Adam was like, his father should show him violence, which is true. He should show him violence, and he also should show him how to control it. And this is one of the reasons why you have an amount of crime and violence in our own communities, because there are no fathers to teach them how to control it.
Excellent.
And I've said that many of times to many of officials, elected and appointed. The same stuff I tell you, I give it to elected officials even worse. And I was in uniform doing it, so I didn't give a damn. And they respected what I said and said, "You know what? You're absolutely right."
Well, this is why so many coaches become surrogate fathers, because we need it to such an extreme degree. And in many ways, YouTube has become an extension of that. Because, prior to YouTube, yeah, you had a basketball coach, a football coach, or something, and maybe a professor or teacher or something. But yeah, you have a lot of brothers coming to the space looking for surrogate big brothers and fathers. And, as far as that's concerned, I applaud the fact that that's a new avenue available. That's something I definitely could have used as a kid at a certain point. But I want to give people an opportunity to give their closing thoughts as we kind of work our way out. So, I'll let y'all volunteer, and then I'll just start calling people if need be.
I'll start with mine because doing a show, I actually did a show on a show now, doing my live stream now. But this was such a hot topic, I had to give a little bit of a testimony. Don't forget to donate. You got to fix that leaky spot in the church. Don't forget to donate, support you, because on a serious note, you got to support Black male spaces, because nobody gives a damn about Black men but Black men, and that's been readily available for years now. Black men, don't be afraid to tell each other you love each other. Don't be afraid to check up on each other. Don't be afraid to encourage each other. Sometimes you got to be the kick in the butt for each other. We're all we got. We literally have no allies. There's one thing, I've said it once and I'll say it again. My brother, my champion, my savior. And that's getting pretty prophetic now, It's becoming a moniker. It should be the moniker of the Black manosphere. It should be the moniker of Black men everywhere. Because I want, if people said, "What's my Christmas gift?" or "What's my New Year's resolution?" my wish would be that we actually looked at each other like my brother, my champion, my savior. And hopefully, after the show, come over to Charles Faulkner Jr., Let's talk some sugar honey iced tea, have a good time, and help each other out. Remember, be the shoulder you want somebody you want to lean on. Woo! Thank you, Doc.
Hey, all right, man. Thanks for coming through. Sometimes you got to be a kick in the butt. Sometimes you got to be the dap. You know what I mean? Like, you can bring it in many different forms, but find a way to extend the resources and support that we need and be open to receiving it. Who's up next?
I'll say something quick, and then for
Okay.
the 13th time, I'll exit. And again, Doc, thank you for the platform and allowing us to have a voice. I was just wanted to say that what I said earlier, I think we need to really be on this with the self-care thing. I think we have to get over the awkwardness of the primacy of Black maleness. Sometimes I feel like, should I really do this? Should I say this?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this natural call to sacrifice that men are just used to doing, and I think we have to stop it. I think we have to kind of think about, be a little selfish, actually. Follow some of what the women are doing. Some of the sisters, they do practice self-care, and they survive a little bit better. So I think we need to start looking in that same direction. That I started going to a doctor more regularly. You have to stay on that exercise game. You have to watch what you eat. And also, like what the last gentleman said, that you should be able to be demonstrative with your feelings and tell your boys, listen, I care for you, I love you guys, especially people you grew up with, and kind of because when you start to see these granddaddy IU characters younger, and he was tough on the mic. I remember Granddaddy IU, as he was from Long Island, so I knew who he was. And you see these guys exiting, it's just it's like 19th century lifespan ages. So I just bid you gentlemen adieu, and we just got to keep the faith and keep strong, and also, like I say, don't be afraid to put yourself first. It's that time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate it.
Hey, man. Appreciate you coming through, man.
As always.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
Roaring Sun.
Again, thanks again for the space and to have this conversation. I think a lot of the brothers need it. Thanks a lot for opening it up. I just want to end by saying, find your joy wherever it is. Find your peace wherever it is. Of course, I already talked about the picture on my thing about how it's just a sunshine from a Caribbean island. You talked about finding it in a song by KRS-One when you needed it most.
Right.
So I just want to let people know I didn't always find it in the islands either. My song was Mos Def's There Is a Way. And it's just 3 lyrics. There is a way. Don't give up. Don't give in. If you have any resources available to you, find them, use them as best as possible, and you can get through. I mean, the hard times will come, but they only make the good times that much better. I salute everybody else in the brotherhood, all in the chat and on the panel. Y'all be easy, be safe, and you can get through it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for coming through. Go ahead, AJ.
Yeah, I appreciate you for having me on the platform, Dr. T. Again, long time listener. And I actually remember discovering you through the KRS-One videos. I believe he had spoke at Fresno State in the mid 2010s. So salute to you. It's kind of full circle to see you have your platform doing well. So much kudos to you. But just me being an avid listener, here's my promise. Again, I'm one of the rising hip hop artists in the DFW area, and particularly with my music, I'm looking to start incorporating some of the language that guys like you, all the PhDs, BGS, Dennis Brownlee, just kind of incorporate that into the new era of hip hop, just to kind of help change the imagery and the messaging. So I appreciate everything you do. The Black Male Emotional Labor series, I remember that from the top of the year. Pivotal, man. You had me shook on that. I've been shook on that one all year, honestly. You know, I had sent it to a friend, one of my best friends, who was older than me, and it broke him down to tears, man. So the work
Wow.
that you're doing is incredible. You know, us as young Black men, we didn't know that. Wow, my whole life we've been doing emotional labor for everybody else except ourselves. You know, and I think that my mantra for 2023 is just, you know, if not them, if not you, then who? You know, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. So I appreciate everything you're doing. Y'all check me out, AJ Shocker, and I'll definitely try to jump in another time.
Hey, man. Appreciate you coming through, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. He said it tears. Damn. All right, Artisan, hit us, man.
Yeah, Dr. T. Thank you for talking about this and having a panel on it. I will say, as Black men specifically, we are not taught as we grow up how to rely on other men and how to, excuse me, deal with your emotions and your stuff in your headspace. I will say, learn how to do that and get your peace, find your peace, and reach out to the brothers that you can and build that relationship with them. The first thing I could think of being coming into this world that Black men are taught is to stay away from older men and everything else. Those are the people you need to be relying on. Women are good, but you need your brothers. You need that network of men and older men that can actually help you and guide you through all these turmoils that you deal with in life, be it stress, be it self-deletion, ideation, all of that stuff. That's what older men are there for, to show you how they've got through. So with that, I got a call, so I got to get back to my John Henryism. But I appreciate you, Doc.
Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate all you brothers. Reach out to each other.
All right, man. Peace. Keep your head up. And I mean that to all of y'all, man. Everybody, you know, listening to the sound of my voice, definitely keep your head up. Like I said, do not allow the moment to lie to you and suggest that's all there is. Earlier, I was saying that there were moments of joy and camaraderie that I got to feel. And it made me reflect on the time period in my life where I thought about self-deletion. One thing I didn't say was the other thing that really hit me was when my son was born. You know what I mean? Or various moments with my wife. There are moments in your life where it'll be a life-changing kind of situation for the better. But if you're not here, you don't give yourself an opportunity to have those experiences. So staying alive in a way is almost like a testament of faith in the nature of life. Again, give it an opportunity. It may take a while, it may not. But if you're not here, you can't enjoy it. And some of the most profound experiences I've ever had, it could come in the form of a child being born. It could come in the form of just having a really good life-changing conversation. It can come in the form of somebody you with, you know what I mean? A relationship you're in. Whatever form it comes in, be available to have that experience. Stay here. You know what I mean? Be present to life and allow it to become what it is, but don't walk away, don't dismiss it, don't disappear because of the current stress of the moment. And again, based on the data we looked at since the beginning, since the pandemic, we've seen the rates for Black men in regard to self-deletion go up 80%. Right? That just means that when we have economic issues, when we have societal issues, the most vulnerable, structurally speaking, are the ones that tend to have the most difficulty. That definitely is the case for many Black men. So we have to find personal resources, whether they're relationships, whether it's a song, whether it's something you like to go do, hike, you know, whatever it is, meditate, go see something, whatever those personal things we got to find them. But then we also have to look out for support on a more structured level. You know, look for therapists. And I'm a strong advocate of looking for Black male therapists. Some of the best support I've had was from a Black male therapist, and there were certain things that he understood. And you can't take that for granted. You got to talk to the people you find and see where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, it was an incredible resource for him to be able to understand certain things that I didn't have to explain. You find yourself in some situations where you almost have to argue with the person you're trying to get help from because they fundamentally don't believe that what you're going through is real. And this adds a whole nother layer of stress that sometimes therapists, sometimes friends or associates can add to, and they may not even be aware of it. So there is comfort in being able to identify, talk to someone that identifies with your experience, understands it, and at the very least takes it seriously enough to, reflect on how that may play into what you're grappling with. Find that kind of support. And again, if you got to reach out to friends, if you got to reach out to, professionals, do what you need to. Shake the tree, make sure it happens, and do it especially in this season, because this season can be an extreme blessing for a lot of people, but it can also feel like a curse for others who don't feel like they have support. That is one of the things we grapple with every year. And I said this, a little while ago, from Thanksgiving to New Year's, it can feel like you're alone in the world. You know what I mean? So don't allow that lie to convince you that that's true. It's not, right? I really want y'all here. I love y'all. I want y'all to exist. I want you to create life in whatever it is you do. Whether you're making music, whether you're teaching, doesn't matter. Put life into what you're doing, because you really have no idea who you might help. And you may never hear about it. You may save somebody else's life just sharing your wisdom about how you navigated and stayed through, and you have no idea that person may have benefited from you. So that can't happen unless you're, one, here, and two, willing to extend that life to others. So I hope y'all do that. And at the end of the day, if you really need it, make sure you take advantage of this number. And if you don't take advantage of this number, reach out to people that love you, reach out to people that have demonstrated that they're in your corner, and tell them you need help, you need dialogue, you need someone to talk to. Hell, you might even need to just get a beer. Whatever it is, reach out, because we need you here. All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all for listening. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic and selfish and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.